My name is Mary. And the day everything changed started like one of the most ordinary and hopeful days of my life. I spent nearly 4 hours preparing that lunch. Not because anyone asked me to, not because I needed to prove anything, but because somewhere deep inside me, I still believed that effort meant something, that love could be shown in quiet, invisible ways. I peeled potatoes slowly, letting the rhythm calm my thoughts. I seasoned the chicken the way my late husband used to like it, out of habit, I suppose. I baked an apple pie from scratch, even though my hands ached halfway through kneading the dough. Because this wasn't just lunch. It was my daughter's birthday. And despite everything, I wanted it to feel like family. The dining room looked beautiful when I was done. Soft afternoon light slipped through the curtains and rested gently on the table. I brought out my best plates, the ones I only used for special occasions. White porcelain with delicate gold edges. I placed fresh daisies in the center. Yellow. Emily used to love yellow when she was younger. She once told me it felt like sunshine you could touch. I remembered that, even if she didn't remember me the same way anymore. They arrived 10 minutes late. I heard the car door slam before the doorbell rang. Then voices, sharp, hurried, impatient. I wiped my hands on a towel and forced a smile before opening the door. "Mom," Emily said quickly, brushing past me with a quick air kiss that barely touched my cheek. Behind her, Daniel walked in slowly, scanning the hallway like he was inspecting a hotel he might not approve of. "Nice place," he muttered, not really meaning it. I closed the door quietly behind them. "Lunch is ready," I said, trying to keep my voice warm. Emily didn't answer. She was already walking into the dining room, her heels clicking against the floor. Daniel followed, setting his expensive-looking watch on the table like he owned the space. "It's a bit stuffy in here," he said, loosening his collar. "Do you ever open the windows?" I paused. "I can after we eat," I replied gently. I didn't want the food to get cold. He shrugged like it didn't matter. I'd learned over the years that small comments like that weren't worth responding to. Not anymore. We sat down. For a moment, just a moment, it felt normal. We talked about the weather, about traffic, about a new cafe that had opened downtown. Safe topics. Empty ones. I watched Emily as she spoke. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear. The way she avoided looking directly at me for too long. She used to tell me everything. Now, I was lucky if I got fragments. Then Daniel cleared his throat. "We're thinking of upgrading apartments," he said casually, cutting into the chicken without waiting. Emily lit up immediately. "Oh, Mom, you'd love it. It's in the new Riverside complex. 3 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, a gem, concierge." She spoke faster as she went on, excitement building. "It's perfect." I nodded slowly. "It sounds expensive," I said carefully. The shift in the room was immediate. Emily's smile faded. Daniel leaned back in his chair. "We're doing fine," he said, his tone suddenly sharp. "We know what we're doing." I folded my hands in my lap. "I didn't mean anything by it," I said. "I just—" "You always say that," Emily interrupted. "You always make it sound like we're irresponsible." That stung more than I expected. "I've been helping you for years," I said quietly. "I just want to make sure you're secure." Daniel laughed. A short, dry sound. "Helping," he repeated. "You mean controlling?" I blinked. "I've never tried to control you." Emily shook her head. "You always remind us of what you've done. Every time. Every single time." "That's not true," I whispered. But even as I said it, something inside me hesitated. Was it? Silence settled over the table. I looked down at the food I had spent hours preparing. No one had said it tasted good. No one had even noticed the effort. "You know what the problem is?" Daniel continued, leaning forward now. "You can't let go. You built your whole life around being needed, and now you don't know who you are without that." I felt my chest tighten. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" he said. Emily didn't defend me. She just sat there. That was the moment I felt something shift. Not loudly. Not dramatically, just quietly, like something inside me finally stepping back. Mom, Emily said after a pause, her tone softer now but still distant. We just need help with the deposit. It's temporary. Once we're settled, things will stabilize. I looked at her. How much? Daniel answered. 8,000. The number hung in the air. I let out a slow breath. I've already been covering part of your rent, I said. And your car insurance. And… Oh my God, Emily groaned, pushing her plate away. Here we go again. This is exactly what I mean, Daniel added. Strings attached. Always strings. They're not strings, I said, my voice shaking slightly. They're concerns. I'm your mother. And we're adults, Emily snapped. But you don't see that, do you? To you, we're just projects. That word hit harder than anything else. Project. Not daughter. Not family. Just something to manage. I stared at her, trying to recognize the girl I raised. I think maybe we should talk about this another time, I said. No, Daniel said firmly. Let's talk now. He stood up. Let's talk about how you use money to keep control. How you make us feel small every time we need help. I never. You do, Emily said quietly. You always have. The room felt colder. I realized something then. It didn't matter what I said. They had already decided who I was. I stood up slowly. I think it's best if you leave, I said. Emily looked surprised. Seriously? Yes. Daniel grabbed his watch. Unbelievable, he muttered. They headed toward the door without another word. Emily paused for a second, her hand on the handle. You're overreacting, she said. Maybe I was. Or maybe, for the first time in years, I wasn't reacting enough. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said quietly. She didn't answer. The door closed. And just like that, everything was silent again. I went back to the dining room. The table still looked perfect. The flowers, the plates, the untouched food. But something had changed. Not outside. Inside me. That night, sitting alone in my house, I made a decision. If they saw me as nothing more than a source of money, then maybe it was time to stop giving them access to it. And for the first time in a long time, that thought didn't scare me. It felt right. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every word from that lunch over and over again, as if somehow I could rearrange the conversation and make it hurt less. But no matter how I turned it in my mind, it always ended the same way. Emily's cold eyes, Daniel's voice cutting through me, and that word echoing louder than anything else. Control. It's strange how one word can undo years of love, years of sacrifice, years of quiet effort that no one ever saw. I had spent so long trying to be needed, trying to be reliable, trying to be the person they could always count on, that I never stopped to ask myself a simple question. At what cost? Morning came too quickly, bringing that sharp, uncomfortable clarity that only follows a sleepless night. The house felt different. Not empty exactly, just honest. Like the silence wasn't something to fear anymore, but something that revealed what had always been there. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, wrapping my hands around the warm mug as if it could steady me. For years, this table had been the center of everything: homework, late-night talks, birthday breakfasts, tears, laughter. Now it was just me. And maybe for the first time that wasn't a tragedy. My phone buzzed at 9:12 a.m. Emily. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. A moment later, a voicemail notification appeared. Mom, about yesterday, her voice said, slightly rushed, slightly impatient. Things just got out of hand. Daniel didn't mean everything he said. Just call me back, okay?
No apology.
Not really. Just a soft attempt to smooth things over without actually acknowledging what had happened. I set the phone down without responding. Instead, I opened my laptop. The banking app loaded slowly, almost as if it knew this moment mattered. Numbers filled the screen. balances, transactions, monthly transfers. I had seen them all before, but that morning they felt different. Colder.
Clearer.
Every month, for nearly 6 years, I had transferred money into Emily's account. At first, it was temporary. Just until we get on our feet, she had said. Then it became routine. Expected. Invisible. $3,000 a month. I scrolled through the history. Deposit after deposit, lined up neatly like quiet acts of love no one remembered receiving. But between those deposits were other patterns, things I had ignored before, because I didn't want to see them. Expensive boutiques, high-end restaurants, weekend trips, designer purchases. Not survival. Lifestyle.
My phone buzzed again.
This time it was Daniel. Mary, we need to sort out the deposit ASAP. The apartment won't wait. Let me know when you can transfer the money.
No greeting.
No acknowledgement of yesterday. Just expectation. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes for a moment. Something inside me settled. Not anger. Not even sadness.
Clarity.
For years, I told myself I was helping them, that I was being a good mother, that love meant giving, even when it hurt. But sitting there looking at those numbers, I realized something I had been avoiding. I wasn't helping them grow. I was helping them avoid growing. And maybe I had been avoiding something too. The truth that they no longer saw me as a person, just a solution. At 10:03 a.m., Emily called again. This time, I answered. Mom, finally, she said quickly. Did you see Daniel's message? We really need to handle this today. I took a slow breath. Emily, do you realize how much I've given you over the years? There was a pause. Mom, not this again. Over $200,000, I said calmly. That's how much I've transferred since you got married. Silence. Then a sigh. We've always appreciated it. Have you? I asked quietly, because yesterday didn't feel like appreciation. That was different, she said. We were stressed. You called me controlling. And you are sometimes, she snapped. You always question our decisions, our finances, everything. Because I'm the one funding them. I said, my voice steady now. Do you see how that works? Another silence. Uncomfortable.
Heavy.
We just need help with this deposit, she said finally, softer now. After that, things will settle. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see it. That's what you said 5 years ago. That's not fair. No, I said quietly. What's not fair is that I've been giving and giving, and somehow I'm still the problem. Her tone shifted. So, what are you saying? I looked out the window at my small garden, at the flowers I had planted myself, the ones that grew because I cared for them, but also because they had roots of their own. I'm saying I need time, I replied. For what? To think, to decide what's right. Mom, we don't have time. The deposit is due this week. I understand that, I said, but I still need time. She exhaled sharply. Unbelievable. The call ended. I sat there for a long time after that. Then, slowly, I opened the banking settings. The automatic transfer was scheduled for the next day. I hovered over the cancel button. My hand trembled slightly. Not because I didn't know what I was doing, but because I did. 5 years of habit. 5 years of saying yes. 5 years of putting myself second, quietly, consistently. With one click, that would end. I pressed it. A confirmation message appeared. Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring transfer? I stared at it for a moment. Then I clicked yes. The screen refreshed. Just like that, it was gone. I didn't feel panic. I didn't feel guilt. I felt still, like something inside me had finally stopped spinning. But I wasn't done. I moved the rest of my accessible savings into a locked account, something stable, something that couldn't be touched impulsively, not by me, not by anyone else. Not hidden, not secret, just protected. Protected from emergencies that were never really emergencies. Protected from expectations that had slowly turned into demands. protected from the version of myself who had been too afraid to say no. My phone started ringing again.
Emily.
Then Daniel. Then Emily again. I turned the sound off. For the first time in years, I didn't rush to answer. I made myself lunch. Simple.
Quiet.
I ate it slowly at the same table where everything had fallen apart the day before. And something strange happened. The silence didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt peaceful. That evening, I sat in the living room with a cup of tea, watching the light fade outside the window.
No tensión.
No waiting for the next request. No rehearsing conversations in my head. Just space. Of course, I knew it wouldn't last. Change like this never goes unnoticed. There would be anger, accusations, maybe even blame from others. But for the first time in a very long time, I wasn't afraid of that, because something had shifted.
Not in them.
In me. And once that changes, everything else has to follow. The first 2 days of silence felt almost unreal, like stepping out of a loud room into a place where you can finally hear your own thoughts. I moved through my house slowly, touching things I hadn't noticed in years: the edge of the kitchen counter, the back of the chair where Emily used to sit doing homework, the photo frames I had avoided looking at for too long. I even slept better than usual, though I still woke up once or twice, expecting my phone to light up with another demand, another complaint, another reminder of what I was supposed to give. But nothing came. No calls. No messages. Just quiet. And in that quiet, something inside me started to settle. I made myself tea in the mornings and sat by the window, watching people pass by on the street, wondering how many of them were living lives that looked fine on the outside, but felt just as tangled underneath. On the third morning, the storm arrived. My phone rang at 8:12 a.m., loud and aggressive against the silence. I stared at the screen for a moment before answering. It was Emily. "Mom, what is going on?" she said immediately, no greeting, no pause. The transfer didn't go through. I took a slow sip of my tea before answering, forcing myself to stay calm.
Good morning, Emily.
"Don't do that," she snapped. "Did you cancel it?" "Yes," I said simply. There was a pause, but not the kind filled with reflection. The kind filled with disbelief. "Why would you do that?" she demanded. "Our rent is due. We're already late." "I told you I needed time," I replied. "I've been thinking about our arrangement." "Arrangement?" she repeated, her voice rising. "You mean helping your daughter live?" "I mean supporting two adults who are capable of supporting themselves." "That's not fair," she said quickly. "You know how things are right now. We're trying to move forward, and you just pull the rug out from under us." I closed my eyes briefly. "Emily, you've built your life expecting that money to always be there. Because you made it that way," she shot back. "You offered it. You insisted." "I offered help," I said. "Not dependency." She let out a sharp laugh.
Wow.
"So now we're the problem." "This isn't about blame," I said quietly. "It's about change." "Well, your change is going to cost us everything," she replied coldly. "We could lose the apartment." "You can find another one," I said. "Something within your means." "That's easy for you to say," she snapped. "You're not the one dealing with this." "No, I thought. I've just been funding it." "I believe you'll figure it out," I said. The line went silent for a second, then she spoke again, lower this time, sharper. "This is about Daniel, isn't it? You've never liked him." "This is about how I've been treated," I said. "By both of you." "Oh, please," she said. "You're just holding a grudge over one argument." "It wasn't one argument," I replied. "It was the moment I stopped ignoring everything that came before it." She didn't answer that. Instead, she said, "We need $8,000 by Friday." I let the number sit between us. "I'm not giving you that money," I said. The silence that followed was heavier this time. Not shocked. Not confused. Just hard. "Then I guess we know where we stand," she said finally. "Yes," I replied.
I guess vedo.
She hung up without saying goodbye. I set my phone down and stared out the window again, but the calm from the past 2 days was gone. In its place was something sharper, something more uncertain. Not regret, but not peace either. Just the awareness that things had truly changed now. An hour later, Daniel called. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Mary, he said, his voice smooth in a way that instantly put me on guard. I think there's been some kind of a misunderstanding.
There hasn't, I said.
We noticed the transfer didn't go through, he continued, ignoring my tone. I'm sure it's just a temporary thing. It's not, I replied. There was a brief pause, then his voice shifted, losing the softness. You're really going to do this? Yes. You realize what you're putting us through, he said. Late fees, penalties, this affects our credit, our future. I understand consequences, I said. I've been protecting you from them for years. That's what family does, he shot back. Family also shows respect, I said. Another pause. This one colder. So this is punishment, he said.
No, Ian Sweat.
It's a boundary. He exhaled sharply. You're being unreasonable. Maybe, I said. But I'm also being honest. You're going to regret this, he said. I didn't respond. He hung up. By the afternoon, the messages started coming in from people I hadn't spoken to in months, some even years. My sister, my cousin, an old family friend, all of them suddenly concerned, all of them repeating the same version of the story. Are you okay? Emily says you're acting strange. She's really worried about you. They said you're going through something. I read each message slowly, feeling something unfamiliar rise in me. Not anger, not sadness, but clarity. They had already told their version. And in that version, I wasn't someone setting boundaries. I was the problem. I didn't reply to most of them. Instead, I called the one person I knew would actually listen. Ruth, I said when she answered. I've been waiting for your call, she replied immediately. What happened? I told her everything. The lunch, the argument, the decision, the calls that followed. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. About time, she said. I let out a small breath. You really think so? I know so, she replied. Mary, I've watched this for years. You weren't helping them. You were carrying them. The family doesn't see it that way, I said.
Of course they don't, she said.
They're only hearing one side. And guess who benefits from that version? I smiled faintly. Not me. No, she agreed. But that doesn't make it wrong. I leaned back in my chair, letting her words settle. Emily thinks I'm punishing her, I said. Ruth paused. Maybe a part of you is, she said gently. But that doesn't mean you're wrong to stop. I thought about that for a moment. Maybe she was right. Maybe part of me did want Emily to feel something, to understand what it felt like to be dismissed, to be taken for granted. But deeper than that, I just wanted my life back. That evening, I went out for a walk. The air was cool, the sky fading into soft shades of blue and gray. I passed a cafe where people sat laughing, leaning into each other like the world outside didn't exist. I wondered when I had last felt that light. When I got home, I made myself a simple dinner. No effort.
No presentation.
Just food. And for the first time in years, I ate without waiting for anyone else. But the storm wasn't over. At 7:03 p.m., my phone buzzed again. A message from Emily. Family dinner tomorrow. 7 p.m. Everyone will be there. We need to talk. I stared at the screen for a long time. Everyone. Which meant this wasn't a conversation. It was a confrontation. My first instinct was to say no, to protect the fragile peace I had just started to build. But then something else surfaced. A memory. My mother's voice. Never avoid a moment that demands truth. I typed one word. Okay. As I set my phone down, I felt it again, that quiet shift inside me. The same one that started at the table. Only now it was stronger. Tomorrow wouldn't be easy. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what I would say. The drive to Emily's apartment felt longer than it should have. I had been there dozens of times before, always arriving with groceries, gifts, or quiet solutions to problems no one else wanted to solve. But that evening felt different.
Heavier.
The city lights passed by in blurred streaks as I kept both hands steady on the wheel, my thoughts unusually clear. I wasn't rehearsing what I would say. I wasn't trying to soften anything. For once, I wasn't preparing to make things easier for them.
I was simply going as myself.
Their building stood tall and polished, all glass and steel, the kind of place that looked impressive from the outside but felt strangely hollow once you stepped inside. I parked next to a row of expensive cars, most of which I suspected were financed the same way Emily's life had been, on borrowed comfort. As I walked toward the entrance, I caught my reflection in the glass doors. Calm face. Straight posture.
No hesitación.
I barely recognized that version of myself, but I didn't look away. Emily opened the door before I even knocked, as if she had been waiting right behind it. Her expression flickered between relief and tension. "You came," she said. "I said I would," I replied. Inside, the apartment was exactly as I remembered, stylish, curated, almost too perfect. Everything placed just right, like a showroom rather than a home. But what caught my attention wasn't the decor. It was the people. Everyone really was there. My sister Linda sat stiffly on the couch, her hands folded in her lap. My brother Mark stood near the window, pretending to look outside but clearly listening to everything. Two cousins I hadn't seen in months sat side by side, whispering quietly until I walked in. And Daniel stood near the center of the room, like a host preparing to manage a situation. This wasn't a dinner. It was an intervention. "Mary," Linda said, standing up quickly. "We're so glad you came." "Are you?" I asked calmly. The room shifted. Emily closed the door behind me. "Let's just sit and talk," she said, gesturing toward the table. I didn't sit. "I'd like to know why I'm here first," I said. Daniel stepped forward slightly. "We're concerned about you," he said. "Emily told us what's been happening." "What version did she tell?" I asked. No one answered that directly. "It's not about versions," Mark said carefully. "It's about the fact that you've suddenly cut them off. That's not like you." "Exactly," one of my cousins added. "It's out of character." Out of character. I almost smiled. "Or maybe," I said slowly, "it's the first time I've been honest." That landed harder than I expected. Emily crossed her arms. "Mom, you're making this into something it's not." "No," I said, finally walking further into the room. "I think I've been avoiding what it is for a long time." Daniel let out a quiet breath. "Look, no one is attacking you. We're just trying to understand why you would suddenly stop helping your own daughter." "Helping," I repeated. I turned to face all of them. "Do any of you know how much I've given them over the past 6 years?" Silence. I nodded slightly. "Over $200,000. That got their attention. Linda's eyes widened. "That can't be right." "It is," I said. "Monthly transfers. Expenses. Emergencies that weren't really emergencies." Emily shifted uncomfortably. "You offered that." "I did," I agreed. "And I continued long after I should have stopped." Mark frowned. "But they needed it, didn't they?" "Did they?" I asked. "Or did they just get used to it?" Daniel stepped in quickly. "We've been building a life. That takes time." "With someone else's money?" I asked. His jaw tightened. "That's not fair." "Then explain it to me," I said. "Explain how two adults in their 30s can't cover their own rent without my help. Explain how I became responsible for maintaining a lifestyle that isn't mine." No one spoke. Emily's voice cut through the silence. "You're exaggerating." I looked at her. "When was the last time you called me just to ask how I was?" She opened her mouth, then stopped. "That's not what this is about," she said. "It is for me," I replied. The room grew quieter. Linda tried to soften the moment. "Mary, maybe we can all just take a step back. No one is saying you have to keep giving the same amount, but cutting them off completely." "I didn't cut them off," I said. "I stopped funding them." "That's the same thing," Emily said sharply.
No, I said.
It's not. Daniel shook his head. You're being stubborn. And you've been comfortable, I replied. That hit him. I could see it. You think this is easy for us? He said. You think we're just sitting around spending your money for fun? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I asked, how much did your last watch cost? His expression froze. That's irrelevant, he said. Is it? I asked. Emily stepped in quickly. This is ridiculous. You're picking apart everything we do. No, I said calmly. I'm finally paying attention to it. The tension in the room thickened. Mark cleared his throat. Maybe we should focus on moving forward. What do you want, Mary? That was the first honest question anyone had asked. I took a breath. I want respect, I said. I want honesty. And I want my life back. Emily laughed under her breath. Your life? Yes, I said. The one I've been putting on hold for years.
For us, she said. No, irraplia quietly.
For what I thought you needed. The words hung in the air. Daniel looked at Emily, then back at me. So that's it? You're just done? Yes, I said. You're not going to help with the new apartment?
No.
With the rent?
No.
With anything? I held his gaze. Not financially. The silence that followed felt final. Emily's eyes filled with something I couldn't quite name. Anger, hurt, disbelief. Maybe all of it at once. So, you're choosing yourself over your family, she said. I shook my head slowly. No, I said. I'm choosing not to lose myself anymore. Linda looked between us, clearly uncomfortable now. Maybe we pushed this too far, she murmured. No, I said gently. This needed to happen. I picked up my bag. I didn't come here to argue. I continued. I came because I was asked. And now I've said what I needed to say. Emily's voice cracked slightly. And that's it? You just walk away? I paused at the door. I've been standing still for years, I said. This is the first time I'm actually moving. I opened the door. Behind me, I could hear voices starting to rise again. Daniel arguing, Emily defending, someone trying to calm things down. But for the first time, I didn't turn back. The hallway outside was quiet, empty,
real.
As I walked toward the elevator, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not sadness, not even relief. Freedom, not the loud kind, not the kind that comes with celebration. The quiet kind, the kind that begins the moment you stop explaining yourself to people who never really listened. When I stepped outside, the night air hit my face, cool and steady. I stood there for a moment, breathing it in, letting it settle into my chest. For years, I thought love meant staying, enduring,
giving.
But that night, I understood something different. Sometimes love means leaving, and sometimes it means finally choosing yourself. After that night, everything went quiet. Not the kind of silence that feels tense or unfinished, but the kind that settles in slowly, like dust after a storm. No more calls. No messages. No sudden urgent problems that somehow always required my involvement. For the first time in years, my phone stayed still on the table where I left it, and I didn't find myself checking it out of habit every few minutes. It was strange at first, almost unsettling. I had spent so long being needed that I didn't quite know what to do when no one needed anything from me. The first few days felt like standing in an empty room after all the furniture had been removed. There was space, but also an echo. I moved through my house differently.
Slower.
More aware. I opened windows I hadn't opened in months, letting fresh air move through rooms that had felt stagnant for too long. I cleaned out closets, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I found old photo albums tucked away on shelves and sat on the floor flipping through them, pausing at pictures of Emily as a child, gap-toothed smiles, messy hair, arms wrapped tightly around me like I was her whole world. I didn't cry, not because it didn't hurt, but because I finally understood something I hadn't allowed myself to accept before. Loving someone doesn't mean losing yourself to them. Ruth called me almost every day during that first week. She never pushed, never asked questions in a way that felt heavy. She just checked in, like a steady rhythm I could rely on. "So," she said one afternoon, "what are you going to do with all this freedom?" I smiled slightly, even though she couldn't see it. "I don't know yet." "Well, that's the best part," she replied. "You get to figure it out." And that was the truth. For the first time in years, my time wasn't already spoken for by someone else's needs, someone else's plans, someone else's expectations. It was mine, completely mine. A week later, I walked into a small travel agency downtown. It wasn't something I had planned. I just found myself standing outside the window, looking at posters of places I had always told myself I would visit one day. Mountains, oceans, distant cities filled with unfamiliar streets and possibilities. "Can I help you?" the agent asked with a warm smile. "Yes," I said, surprising even myself. I want to go somewhere." She handed me a brochure.
Alaska.
Glaciers, open water, quiet landscapes untouched by noise or urgency. It felt right. 2 weeks later, the trip was booked. It wasn't just a vacation. It was a decision. In the meantime, I started rebuilding small parts of my life in ways that felt almost unfamiliar at first. I joined a local gardening group that met every Saturday morning. The first time I went, I nearly turned around before walking in. I didn't know anyone,
I didn't know what to say.
but I stayed. And by the end of that morning, I had spent 2 hours talking about soil, sunlight, and flowers with people who didn't expect anything from me except my presence.
There was something healing in that.
Simple conversations.
No hidden tensión.
No expectations attached.
Just being.
One evening, I had dinner with a neighbor, Thomas, a widower who had moved in down the street a year earlier. We had exchanged polite greetings before, nothing more. But that night, we sat at his kitchen table and talked for hours about life, about loss, about the strange quiet that comes after everything changes. There was no pressure, no awkwardness. Just two people sharing space without trying to fill it with anything artificial. And for the first time in a long time, I laughed. Not politely, not out of habit,
But genuinely.
of course, the silence from Emily didn't mean I didn't think about her. I did. Every day, in small, unexpected ways. When I passed a store she used to love. When I saw something that reminded me of her childhood. When I caught myself reaching for my phone before remembering there was no message waiting. I missed her, but I didn't miss who I had become for her. And that difference mattered. About a month later, something shifted again. It was early morning. I was standing in the kitchen, making coffee, the sunlight just beginning to stretch across the floor. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. For a moment, I just stood there, listening to the quiet echo after the sound faded. Then it rang again. I walked to the door slowly and opened it. Emily stood there. She looked different. Not dramatically. Not in a way anyone else might immediately notice. But I did. Her shoulders weren't as rigid. Her expression wasn't guarded in the same way. There was something softer there. Or maybe just more real.
Hi, she said. Iraplia.
For a second, neither of us moved. Then I stepped aside. "Do you want to come in?" She nodded. We sat in the living room, the same place where so many conversations had once felt forced or unfinished. But this time, there was no rush. No tension pushing the moment forward. "I've been thinking," she said finally. I didn't interrupt. "About everything," she continued. "About what you said. About how things have been." I watched her carefully. "It's been hard," she admitted. "Figuring things out without everything being handled." "I imagine it would be," I said gently. She nodded. "We had to move. The apartment was too expensive. We didn't realize how much we were relying on." She stopped, searching for the right word. "Me?" I offered. She looked down. "Yes." The honesty in that moment felt different from anything before. Not defensive. Not dismissive.
Just honest.
I was angry at first, she continued. I thought you were punishing me. I told everyone that. I know, I said. She gave a small, embarrassed smile. Yeah, I figured you would. Silence settled between us again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. I didn't come here to ask for money, she said. I didn't think you did. I came because, she hesitated, then looked up at me. I miss you. Something in my chest tightened. I miss you too, I said quietly. She nodded, blinking quickly as if holding something back. I don't know how to fix everything, she admitted. But I know I don't want things to stay like this. I leaned back slightly, studying her. Not the version I had been trying to protect, not the version that had hurt me, but the person sitting in front of me now. You don't have to fix everything at once, I said. You just have to be willing to do it differently. She nodded slowly. I think I am. We sat there for a while longer, talking not about money, not about obligations, but about small things. Real things. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't complete, but it was a start. When she left, she hugged me. Not quickly, not out of habit, but fully. And as I closed the door behind her, I stood there for a moment, letting the feeling settle. Nothing had magically healed, but something had changed, and that was enough. A few weeks later, I stood on the deck of a cruise ship, watching the horizon stretch endlessly in front of me. The air was cold and sharp, the kind that wakes you up from the inside. Mountains rose in the distance, massive and silent, untouched by everything I had left behind. I leaned against the railing and took a deep breath. For years, I had thought love meant sacrifice without limits, giving until there was nothing left, staying even when it hurt. But standing there, with the ocean moving steadily beneath me, I understood something I hadn't before. Real love has boundaries. Real love doesn't erase you. Real love allows space for others and for yourself. I reached into my pocket as my phone buzzed. A message from Emily. Have an amazing trip. Send pictures. I smiled, not because everything was perfect, but because for the first time in a long time, it was honest. And as the ship moved forward into open water, I realized something simple, but powerful. I hadn't lost my family. I had finally found myself.